lows in the mid-60s. Don't miss out. Get your tickets to Diamond Rio at the Santa Clarita Performing Arts Center, College of the Canyons, Saturday, June 30th at 7 p.m. with special guest Savannah Burrows. Tickets are on sale now. Visit canyonspac.com. That's canyonspac.com.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Good morning and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Comfort Keepers in Home Care and Advanced Audiology. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-hosts,
Dr. Jean Dorio
and
Miles McNamara
on your hometown station, KHTS. That's a little unusual, you know. You have to stop and think about it. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our in-studio guest this morning is Sharon Brubaker, and she is a grief recovery specialist. That's very interesting.
Is that interesting? Hi. Well, I'm so
Welcome.
glad to be here.
Welcome,
So
Sharon.
honored to be here.
Well, and grief, I mean, this is the senior hour, so we want to talk about senior grief, but in the news, I have to talk about this. We just are getting an executive order for those young children who have been separated from their families, but there is an executive order that will now stop that from happening. But, you know, tell us about that kind of grief. I mean, I've been in grief since all of this started, and, you know, they're not my kids, but I just wouldn't want to be separated from my children. So real briefly, before we get on to the seniors, Sharon, can you tell us about this kind of grief, how it might affect some people here in Santa Clarita?
Absolutely. I would imagine that for most people that they're experiencing a broken heart or they're feeling sad or they can relate to it a little bit. Mm-hmm. We know for a fact that grief is cumulative and it's cumulatively negative. Mm-hmm. So that grief can stay in there for a long time. And a lot of times this can bring up other losses that people have experienced, but they may have not necessarily had a child taken from them or removed from their home, but they can feel that pain in their heart, even from other situations. So it is not uncommon for something to happen, especially in the news, and bring up feelings, incomplete emotional feelings that are just there. So I would say that, you know, one of the best things we can do is definitely be talking about it. And that's great that you brought that up right at the opening of the show.
You know, and grief to our seniors is handled in different ways because it does relate to, you know, sometimes their grandkids, but it especially relates to the loss, especially of a child or of a spouse. Let's talk about that a little bit for our seniors.
So we know for a fact as grief recovery specialists, there are 43 known losses that a person can experience over a life.
43?
Yes, yeah. And
Whoa.
the thing about grief that most people think is that we mostly associate it with death, right? So right away they think, I'm only grieving if there's a death or if there is a divorce, because those are the most common. But what about pet loss?
Oh, yes.
Moving away from home? Financial changes, increase or decrease. What about becoming an empty nester? Retirement is a grief, right? Losing your job.
It didn't dawn on me to connect that.
Well,
But
grief,
it really is.
sorry about that. Grief is a
Really
normal
is.
and natural reaction to a loss of any kind. So anything that our heart experiences as a loss can cause a grieving experience in our heart. The other thing that we know is that these losses, when they are not dealt with, stay in our heart, and then other losses just add to them. And that's where it can compound and really explode.
And when you say 43, I mean, I'm sure it's a living, breathing document. Are we done at 43? I mean, I don't know if we have time to go over all 43, but I mean, it's a probably ever-growing list.
It's an ever-growing list, but also remember that grief is unique and individual. So just like the first question that was brought up where we talk about the experience that's going on right now with separation, some people may not attach that to their heart. They may not feel that as a loss for them. So you can experience, let's say, for example, a divorce and experience it one way. I can experience a divorce and experience it a totally different way because of the losses that have been in my heart. We also know that there are 5 intangible losses that a griever can experience, right? So loss of trust, loss of safety, loss of control of your body, loss of faith, or loss of fertility. Those are intangible. So let's say you experience a loss, but during that loss you have a loss of trust. That's a whole separate area that we have to deal with. So it all kind of wraps in that way.
Yeah, that's
That's
interesting.
quite a few right there.
Well, it's interesting because when we think of loss, we think of death.
Of death,
But
I
it's
know.
not always death. It's
No.
a lot loss of a lot of intangibles, as you were just saying.
I
So-
never thought about it in that it just didn't dawn on me that would be a grief.
Yes, yes.
But it
Interesting,
does
interesting.
impact, no matter what age you are, it's going to impact one's life, physical and psychological life. So when you say we need to deal with it, I mean, that's important, but I think that's the $64,000 question sometimes, because everybody has to deal with it in a way, but they might be different ways.
Yes, some people come through it different ways. What I do is I help them do an inventory of your life and look at the losses that are in there. Typically when someone comes to me through either a death, a divorce, or sometimes people come to me just because their life is just not as happy or fulfilling as they'd like it to be, but they're not exactly sure what it is, right? So we do an inventory, we look at the losses in their life, and then we zone in on where we need to complete, what pain in their heart needs to be completed. A lot of times for seniors, I have to say, is, we were very much taught time heals all wounds. Just give it time. Be strong. Be strong for others. You got to keep busy, and the pain will eventually go away. And what we know for a fact is, yes, we can push that pain down, but sometimes it will show up.
Yes, it will.
And sometimes it never goes away. And that's fine too, but if it's at an extreme level, diminishing that pain is truly helpful to allow that person to get through life.
Yeah.
So, time, and that's what, you always hear, allow time to heal you. But, sometimes there is not a shortcut, but sometimes are ways of talking about it, getting into the sense of it, getting good counseling, being with others in a group. All these things can, help it lessen with time as well.
So in grief recovery, we say this. We know for a fact that time does not heal. So how much time? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? We believe that action within time, exactly what you're saying. It's the action within time that absolutely heals the broken heart. When we take the action steps, talking about it, admitting it, accepting it, reviewing it, and then completing it is what absolutely helps it.
And
Is that
sometimes
sort of I'm sorry, I was just going to ask, is that sort of a revamping of, we all have heard the 5 stages of grief. Is that sort of what you just talked about, and identifying what stages folks are in, or how applicable is that in your work?
So in grief recovery, we don't buy into the 5 stages of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross study that was done in 1969. Her actual paper was written, and it was titled On Death and Dying. And that paper was written for someone who's been given a terminal illness. So my story is this. In 2006, my nephew Austin drowned in Lake Havasu. The 5 stages was all that I knew, and the 5 stages were all that my sister knew. So every day I would call her to find out what stage she was in. And one day she says to me, well, I'm in denial. And I thought, denial? What do you mean you're in denial? And I lowered my voice into the phone and I said, well, Austin died, right? Like I was thinking she didn't realize, or she was having a psychosis moment. She's like, yeah, but maybe I just can't believe it. Maybe my heart just can't believe it. And ultimately what happened is that we just couldn't make the stages fit in this death. And as grief recovery specialists, we know that you will have reduced concentration. You will have a sense of numbness. You will have roller coaster of emotions and a change in eating habits. So those are where we believe a griever actually is. The stages, we believe, are absolutely for someone who's been given a terminal illness and is
well,
passing away.
it's interesting. I lost a son 33 years ago, and I attempted suicide. I really did. And I've told Miles this. And we had a motorcycle riding family. I was divorced, and I had my 3 kids at home, and we'd go up into the hills at the end of our street and ride motorcycles. And after he died, I thought, what can I do? I can't live anymore. I got on that motorcycle and I rode it up to the top on the hill, and I was ready to go over the edge. I really was. And I looked out and I saw my house, the roof of my house, and I thought, Barbara, what are you doing? You have 2 children at home to take care of. If you go, who takes care of them? And I turned myself around and came back home. And that was also, I think, to me, part of my grieving process. But it really woke me up to the fact that, okay, he isn't really gone because he will live forever.
In our hearts.
Yes, absolutely.
And I found it interesting when you shared that story with me the first time, is you actually put a tangible timeline. I think you said something like the kids are going to be coming home from school in an hour.
Yes.
And where,
Yes.
and so you actually thought through that day of how it would affect your other 2
Yes, that's
children
true.
when
I
they
did.
come home.
I did. It was an eye-opener for me because I thought, what are you doing? How can you do this? And it was something that Chuck passed away for a reason, but in thinking back on it, and I've said this for years, he did more in his 26 years than most people do in a lifetime. He was the kind of kid that was always a little over the edge. And my other son and my daughter were, go up to the edge and look over. No, Chuck would go over the edge. So you never knew. There was always excitement in the house. And all of a sudden that excitement was gone, And that's another grieving portion. It's amazing what your being goes through when you lose someone, especially a child.
Yes.
I think that is the worst death anyone can ever experience.
Yeah.
I mean, in thinking about it, I had lost both my parents, but it was like, okay, parents go before kids, so it was a normal thing to have happen, even though it was devastating because I didn't get to be with them. And, thinking about that, but thinking back on that type of grief is so much different. Even when I went through a divorce, like you said, that's a grieving process because you've lost someone. Whether you wanted it or not, you've lost someone, and you've lost a way of living and a way of life. And that's another grieving process there. So I can understand when you say there are 43. Because I must have named 5 in just talking about it, That's very interesting.
Thank you so much for sharing that. My heart just breaks. I can't even imagine what you were going through that day. I just can't even imagine. Thank you for sharing that with me. But I absolutely know what a broken heart feels like,
And
it's not
something
good.
it's something you never get over. I don't care who says, and I was always told, well, in 2 years, your grieving pain will leave you.
That's time heals, right?
Yes, there you go. And it is to a point.
What I find in grief recovery and working with hundreds of grievers is that the absolute pain in your heart, I felt when Austin died as if someone had taken a knife and stuck it clear through my heart. That pain from that broken heart is no longer there. I absolutely can sit here and tell you that I am not in pain from Austin's death. I would love to see 22-year-old Austin right now. I would love to see him. I will miss him forever. But we know for a fact, and I experienced this myself, that fond memories of Austin have returned. I'm able to look at photos of him. I can talk about him, and he is definitely in my heart. I have more of him now. I am not living in that pain, the loneliness, and the isolation that I originally experienced.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because I have photos of Chuck on his motorcycle all over my office wall. along with the other kids, but there are so many of him on his motorcycle because that was his life, his motorcycle.
And I think it's important for folks to understand the value of grief counseling.
Yeah.
Because, I had an aunt who lost a child, my cousin, and, did nothing but live in her own misery for the rest of her days and refused to get counseling, refused to get help, and it literally destroyed her from the inside out. And she was never ever the same. But nobody suggested this was 40 years ago. Yeah. Nobody really suggested the whole grief counseling process for her, and she was just left to really self-destruct.
I sort of feel like that broken heart just starts to get bigger with that pain. It just grows, almost like it's going to explode. And by being able to come to grief recovery or with another person, even just being able to talk about it, allows a little steam to come out, right? So it just takes the pressure off. I need to tell you that I really miss him today. I need to tell you that my heart is broken. I need to tell you that I had this dream about him. And sometimes we don't have a safe place to talk or share that story.
It's very interesting because several years after he passed away, I remember waking up thinking that Chuck was right there. And it was a dream. And I sat up in bed and I looked over and he said, "Mom, I'm all right. I'm fine." And then he was gone. And when I got up, I thought, well, wait a minute, what just happened? But it was his way of telling me, everything's fine, Mom. I'm doing just great. I'm in a good place. And that made me feel so much better. But it brought back all of those memories again, and I had to go through all that same stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of stuff. Yeah. It really is. It's unbelievable.
And I'm sure there's a lot of intangibles that you see in your work. I mean, is so that people bring to the table on their own, like faith, religion, what their beliefs are. I mean, that's got to take you on an avenue, sort of in an impromptu level.
It's absolutely huge. My program is not religious based, even though I'm a Christian. I've been a member of my church for very many years. I need to be where the client is because it is not uncommon for someone to have a loss and then to blame God or start questioning their faith or start looking at that, right? So I need to be wherever you are, and I need to be where you are, where you need me to be. And we know for a fact that if your faith was strong prior to your loss, it will come back when you complete that loss. And if that's another area we need to take care of, then we take care of that in the process as well. Some people want to grieve their relationship with God or just work that out with God because I'm really mad at you right now.
Right.
And I give them that space to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to take a break, don't we? I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio and Miles McNamara on your hometown station, KHTS.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
Aloha, friends! Go check out Honu Coffee, home of the best cold brew coffee. What makes their coffee special is how their organic coffee beans are infused with nitrogen to create a smooth and delicious cup of coffee. You'll also find traditional bold coffees and island-inspired signature drinks. They're the perfect place to catch up with friends or just relax with your favorite cup of joe. Honu Coffee on Lyons and Walnut in Newhall. Stop by and say aloha.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
Clarita's hometown station.
Now FM, 98.1 FM and AM-1220, your hometown station.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio and Miles McNamara on your hometown station, AM-1220 KHTS. I messed it up, didn't I?
And 98.1 FM.
98.1 FM. Okay. No, it's your hometown station, KHTS. There we are. I hope I don't get scolded.
Well, if you're in grief, we have the right person.
Yeah, there we are. That's terrific. And we're speaking with Sharon Brubaker, who is a grief recovery specialist. And during the break, we discussed a couple of things, but how do you work with clients, if you call them clients?
I call them clients, and clients find me, and once a month I offer a group session, which I do an open house, and people come in that way, and so I will do a group class, and then other clients choose to do a one-on-one, and we know that grief is unique and individual. However, no one's grief is higher or lower than anyone's. And the thing that's so important with the groups that I love is that we're not just supporting each other through the group, but we're holding the space. To have someone in that room that absolutely knows what a broken heart feels like is so amazing. Yet on other times, I have people that come to me and they literally cannot even formulate a sentence because the pain is so bad. And they just need to have that extra time and that one-on-one. So I kind of put it this way: I love you where you're at, and whatever you need. You were asking me also on the break, have I ever done any house calls? And there have been seniors that have lost their significant other after 40, 50 years, and I absolutely have had to go to them just to help them through that initial process.
And Barbara faced the possibility of suicide.
Yes.
And she made it through that, and it is that problem, that sense, that feeling, that direction that you're heading, I think has put Barbara, myself, and Miles, the three of us here, on a committee in Santa Clarita, the Suicide Prevention Committee, out of College of the Canyons and Larry Shallert, to help those in our community who are battling with this problem. This is, with the times that we are going through, the financial times, the stresses that we see our children that are in high school and college, and they're facing that possibility, and they're in grief, but they're also feeling and sensing maybe the end of the line for this grief is suicide. How do you Sharon, deal with that in our population, not just the senior population, but for those here in Santa Clarita? So,
unfortunately, most of the suicide clients that I work with are the families afterwards. And that's just, breaks my heart, but that's the absolute truth. I quite often get people that do come in that feel sort of like what Barbara described earlier. And my process doesn't really change in that sense. I do ask them, do I need to be worried about you? Do I need to call? I let them know. And I am very clear on that. It is not uncommon when we're at the lowest despair of our life to feel like I just can't go on. If I could describe it, in some moments, a client said to me the other day, it's like there's no air in this room. I can't breathe. And that's exactly what it feels like. So what I try to do is, a lot of times, is just be that safe place for them to talk. Give them a chance to express what they're going through. Give them a chance to get some of that steam off as we walk the process. Most times I'm sitting with them for an hour, or even sometimes two, to just get them to formulate that one sentence and really help them. I want to be the resource and the safe place. If I'm not trying to put myself in their place, but really being there for them, and if in grief recovery we talk about a heart with ears, and can just be that, if you imagine a big giant heart with ears just hanging off the end, if I can be that for them and they can blow off some of that steam, about the third or fourth week, I can start seeing their face absolutely change. I can see that they're actually getting, they may actually walk in with a little bit of a smile or say a little joke at the end. But the fact that they're getting that place to just relieve some of that pressure is really helpful. I will also say that I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and if I feel someone needs that, I definitely send them in that direction, and that has happened. But in most times, a lot of times what comes up is all that grief, those 43 losses, whatever they may be. You know, sometimes it could be the fact that I lost my dog when I was 11 years old, and Mom told me to just get over it. And here I am 20 years later, and we start looking at the inventory in their life, and they're like, you know what? I really love that dog. That really broke my heart. So being the safe place, I would say, to listen with the heart, with the ears is the biggest thing that I do.
Well, a lot of times, too, in that 43 bullet point list is, I mean, and we see this, and especially with my company, is when the loss is ranked somewhere in there, when they lose their financial independence, when they lose their ability to be as mobile as they used to be, just aging issues that show people that start to kind of withdraw from society. They become very depressed. They disengage. Do you work with folks on that level where they're not accepting aging and they're not accepting the changes in their life?
Absolutely. And the frustration that they have with their own children or caregivers that want to treat them like they're a child and not give them the absolute respect that they had, for sure, 100%. But every time they drop to a new normal, think about it, you can't drive anymore. That's a loss.
Right.
That is a loss. That's a loss of the ability to move, the ability to move around, loss of control right there.
One of the biggest thing I see is loss of independence.
Independence, yeah.
Yeah.
Loss of being able to do what I want, when I want, all of those things. For me, when my father became ill and we decided to put him on the palliative care, and I said, Dad, we're doing this. This is what we need to do. And he looked at me, he goes, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go there. And that was absolutely a grieving experience for him. He was definitely not ready to go there. Okay, so now let's look at it from the other side. After my dad was no longer here, I remember that conversation. And I thought, did I make a mistake? It came up in my grieving process with him. Did I make a mistake? Maybe I shouldn't have done it. He wasn't ready. And that was one of the things, the areas that I absolutely grieved after my dad passed away. And that was one of the areas I needed to complete with him.
Well, I think guilt is one of those areas.
So in grief recovery, I love you guys. In grief recovery, we strongly believe that the definition of guilt is with intent to deceive or do harm. So when I looked at that moment with my dad and I look at guilt, I wasn't trying to deceive him and I wasn't trying to do harm to him. But my heart was absolutely broken that we were dropping to a new normal. I was losing my big, strong daddy, right? Someone else was coming in to help me with the care. And if I really had to look at my heart, I would say that I was probably mostly afraid and sad. So,
Well, I think, what could I have done different as a mother? What could I have done to prevent this from happening?
so grief is also anything we want it to be better, different, or more. So looking at those absolute areas is an area that we examine in the grief.
Yeah, it's interesting because it takes longer than 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lifetime.
It could take a lifetime.
Absolutely.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yes.
How long does it take? 10 years? 20 years? We
You
we
can't
absolutely
put a
don't
number.
know.
No.
You cannot put a number.
No, you absolutely cannot.
Well, that's why one size doesn't fit all. I mean, the template,
That's right.
I mean, we were talking about earlier about the intangibles in people's life, as we said, faith or beliefs or what have you. That's going to be different for absolutely every single person you interact with.
Yeah. And as I said, I teach an 8-week educational program. It absolutely has a book. And the clients are doing their homework weekly and they're bringing it back. I'm giving them the chance to really dump everything that's on their heart that week about their grieving process. And then we go into the work. But sometimes 8 weeks is not enough. Sometimes I need a little bit more time. Sharon, I need to do this a little slower. I need a little bit more time. And I love them through that.
Right.
I take that time and work with them.
How do you deal with, especially our seniors are getting older, they're facing loss of independence, they're facing mobility problems, they're losing relatives, friends, spouse, and all of a sudden they get one grief, then a second grief, then a third one, and it just seems like their whole world is falling down around them. How do we, especially with the aged, I mean, if for the younger, I'm not going to poo-poo their problems or anything, but with seniors, they're looking at, different aspects of life that are changing for them and having profound, emotional and physical impact. And how do you, Sharon, deal with those seniors who have, not one thing, but 10 things that are on their plate?
It's the exact same process, but, imagine the heart of a senior that's getting hit one after another. Today it's Bob, next week it's Carol. Oh, it was the mailman. I remember Sue, and they're just getting hit one after another. And so it's the same process. I do the inventory with them of their life. We look at all the losses, and then we hone in together on which one we're going to start on and which one we're going to complete first. So it's not uncommon for someone to come to me, a senior that has either lost a child or a pet or just lost their freedom. And I start the process exactly the same, and I walk them through very carefully through that process. But it's really interesting how sometimes it can be one little thing that sets them off, that they're just now I'm arguing with my daughter all the time. And they may come to me for that, but it turns out that, 10 years ago I lost my best friend and now I don't have her to talk to. And they do that discovery on their own. I absolutely guide them through the process and they're able to figure that out. And I say, look here, we need to start working here.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But sometimes I've seen seniors who, I'm not sure about a nerd, or they get used to some of the events taking place in their life. And I was at a senior facility, and these three great friends, I mean, they're always yakking and talking, and they were eating lunch, and all of a sudden something happened to one of them where they were like not doing well, and I happened to be there to help out, but I had to actually start resuscitation and help, and also call the paramedics, and the other two were just sitting there and they continued to eat their lunch. And I thought to myself, they must be so used to seeing some of these things happen that, as you get to be a senior age, grief is there, but maybe you just kind of put a barrier up.
Or you push it down so far that you don't touch and tap into those emotions anymore. Or fear.
Yeah.
The absolute fear that, oh my gosh, are we right at the edge of this happening to one of us? Let's pretend like it's not happening, right?
I tell you, they just kept eating.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them like, I'm trying to, and their friend was fine.
Right.
I mean, saved after that, but I just thought they just kept eating.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I didn't quite understand. That was like 25 years ago, but I didn't quite understand. I kind of
become callous to the situation.
Yeah.
That is a callous. Yeah, I don't know what I was struggling for that right word to find that emotion that really that it fit that situation. But they were. And then the next time I saw all three of them together, they're yakking away again, and thank goodness nothing happened at that time.
Yeah. Well, people handle grief in different ways. That may be their way of saying, "Oh, she'll be all right. She'll be all right. We can just go ahead and go ahead. She'll be all right."
Just ignore it and act like it's not even happening. For sure. We know also, as grief recovery specialists, that there are a lot of things that grievers will do to make the pain go away. And we call them short-term energy relieving behaviors. And we do those a lot when we can't get the pressure to release. If you really don't have a place to release this pressure or get the grieving moving in a forward motion. So a lot of the times we'll find grievers will pick up alcohol or increase their alcohol, right? Yep. Sleeping, eating.
Yeah, with some of our seniors nowadays, marijuana.
They're
isolation.
Isolation. watching television,
Mm-hmm.
getting addicted to the TV shows, becoming quiet, just sitting alone in their room, really not sharing about it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make this pain do something. And if we don't have the right direction on what to go with that pain, we're going to find anything we can to get that thing moving.
So Sharon, I do house calls. I've been seeing geriatric older patients for years, but I find a lot of emotion with my patients, what we've been talking about in terms of grieving. But the thing that I see more than anything else is a gender difference in terms of trying to prevent or preserve themselves. And women do fine. Men do not do fine. And, that's why, a lot of our shows here become directed at our senior men because they don't go to the senior center. They don't give their emotions. They haven't done that before. They, fought in World War II, and they didn't bring those horror stories back with them. They covered that all up. They were very good at that. But as life got on, they continued the masquerade and didn't bring it forward. And now as seniors, they have trouble emotionally letting go of that. Do you find that similar?
100%.
Or 150%.
Part of it,
Yes.
and I'll tell you why. It starts, we know, from the age of 2 or 3 years old, and it went something like this. You stop that crying right now. Big boys don't cry.
Great song.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see those tears. You take that out of the room, right? So can you imagine from 2 or 3 years old
Yes.
being told that?
Yes.
Or, oh, honey, don't cry, for the girls. Let me give you a cookie. Now you see her 40 years later, and she's eating all the pain away. You see him, and he's stuffing it away. And so, yes, it's unfortunate
interesting.
that we were raised this way. We are not raised to deal with our emotion and our broken heart. And
Right.
society is not prepared because a lot of times, what if I make you upset? What if I came to you and asked you about your son and you started to cry? How am I going to handle that? So instead of talking to you about it, I'm going to either change the subject, not be a safe place to talk, and then you become the Academy. You could win an Academy Award for the way you act, right? The way you act recovered, the way you act as if everything is okay.
I like John Boehner. I don't know if anybody remembers
Oh,
him,
yeah.
but John Boehner was a politician in Washington D.C. and on occasion and he had a tough life, but on occasion he would cry as he discussed some of these issues.
Yes.
And I liked him because he showed, I think, our senior men that it's okay to cry.
Yeah,
That it's
he
okay
showed-
to open up. It's okay to, give your feelings and your senses of what's going on. And he did. And I have the greatest admiration for anybody who does that, especially when it's a guy.
Absolutely. And we know also that tears may or may not be a sign of grief. Your heart can absolutely be broken, and you can absolutely not be crying as a sign. It's okay. So whichever you do, we're okay with that. We're going to love you where you're at, and we're going to sit here with you. And if you choose to let all those tears just run down your face and the snot run down your nose, we're going to sit right next to you. We're not going to stop that emotion. I'm not going to rub you. I'm not going to hand you tissue. I'm just going to let you be. The tissue's there, and I'm just going to let you feel that emotion, share that emotion, and love you through it.
Do you ever work with third-party groups or people? Because what you said, I was thinking about earlier in that it's very frustrating when you hear people give glib quotes or glib response. Oh, they're in a better place. Time heals all. Whatever they're saying because they don't know what to say. So they're saying things like, stop that, big boys don't cry. So do you ever work with people, especially in our industry, and people who think that, they're saying the right thing, but it's just driving you nutty because it's like, there's just very glib, kind of standard inspirational quotes. Do you work with people on how to be that third party, not necessarily an expert, but to recognize and maybe guide them to an expert?
Absolutely. That's my most favorite thing to do because think about it. I'm doing a program that's called Grief Recovery. I can bring this book to you and I say it's grief recovery. People haven't heard those two words together. That's weird. That's strange. Like to think about that, to think that I could really recover from a broken heart of losing a nephew, right? So, yes, and that in our program is right where we start. We start with the myths that people tell you because they don't know what to say. So they're going to say, don't feel bad. Replace the loss if your dog dies. Time will heal all wounds. Keep busy. Be strong. So I start there. And then there are other things that people say, intellectual comments, because they want to make you feel better, but they don't want to go near that heart or those tears at all.
Right.
He's in a better place. At least be happy you had him so long. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Get another dog tomorrow. So yes, I absolutely. And then I have this whole section on what to say when we are at that part, how you can help the griever.
And we need to take a break, don't we? Yes. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-hosts, Dr. Jean Dorio and Miles McNamara, on your hometown station, KHTS.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Real stories from the Aquarium of the Pacific.
I first came to the aquarium in 1998 on a kindergarten field trip. The aquarium inspired me to learn more about the oceans and how to best protect the environment.
I just never got that connection. I just thought, oh, look, this is just water I can play in, but the aquarium was so much more than that.
Someone throws the buoy and they tell Parker to go find it. He brings it back to me, and as he comes out of the water, on the buoy it says, "Will you marry me?"
I remember one of my students being surprised by her father, who was a diver in the tank.
Our son Liam fell in love with the Aquarium of the Pacific.
It's a great way to spend more time with my dad.
When I was 6 years old and I saw that amazing big blue whale, my life was forever changed.
I remembered some kids touching the bat rays and going, wow.
Come celebrate the Aquarium of the Pacific's 20th anniversary. Meet some old friends and create aquarium stories of your own. Call 888-SHARKS-2 or visit aquariumofpacific.org.
The Aquarium of the Pacific.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a variety of styles, including invisible. All feature-rich, providing unparalleled hearing quality, wearing comfort, and automation that simplifies your life. Don't be fooled by our imitators. There's only one Advanced Audiology with the purple sign next to AAA on Valencia Boulevard.
Now FM, 98.1 FM, and AM 1220. Your hometown station.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Dr. Jean Dorio on your hometown station, KHTS. We're talking with Sharon Brubaker about grief and the terminology of grief recovery, because, you just don't always align those two terms together, that you are going to recover. And, Sharon, our seniors get hit on and on and on with one thing after another. And, they don't realize that, there's a rainbow somewhere, there's a recovery somewhere, there's getting over that hill. That's a difficult, emotional part of life that they don't know that they can achieve.
Yeah, not long ago I was speaking to a group of seniors, and it was during a lunchtime break, and I went to speak with them on grief recovery. And so they introduced me to this group, and it was the cutest thing, and everyone was out there, and I started to talk about grief recovery and going through the whole thing about these myths that we hear, and it was like all of a sudden in unison, they all looked at me, and they all turned to each other and just started talking, like completely ignoring what I was saying. And it's almost like they don't want that information to come in because they so totally buy into that in a few years, it'll just go away. It'll just go away. So I continued talking. And when I walked off the stage, one by one, they came up to share their broken heart. My daughter passed away. My son passed away. I lost my husband. And I mean, literally in tears. but it's like almost in unison. They bought into that time heals, and that I'm here. I'm your resource. I have something to offer you. So
it gives me cold chills to hear that.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So it was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that.
Interesting. Now, I'm assuming that you got into this particular line of work because you lost your nephew?
Because of Austin. I was the director of catering and an event planner prior to this. So I had a whole nother career prior to this. I was a professionally trained florist. And 12 years ago, Austin died. And I tell this story that I honestly don't think I'd ever used the word grief or even said grief in a sentence, even particularly pertaining to me. 8 months after Austin died, I found this program. I signed my sister up and I signed myself up because we were in so much pain. And when I finished the program, and I called her the next day to see how she was doing, and she and I were laughing and having this amazing conversation, I knew without a doubt, the first thought through my head was, I have to help people. I have to get this word out.
Found your calling.
I found my calling, and that was the day my life changed. And Austin will forever be my reason why.
Isn't that amazing? It's very interesting how different events in our lives seem to channel us in a certain direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And many times it's different people.
Yes. Or experiences.
Or experiences, yes.
Right. Or experiences.
Very,
that get us
very
here.
interesting.
Now, are you based here in Santa Clarita, Sharon?
Yes, I'm in Valencia. I have a private office in the Valencia area, and I've been 4 years in Valencia. I started out originally part-time, doing grief recovery part-time in churches and different buildings in the library and that sort of thing, and some classes in my home. And it was 4 years ago that I knew that I needed to really jump in.
Take it up a level.
Take it up a level and make the changes.
So if people want to get a hold of you, Sharon, and, after this conversation, I think that, I'm hoping that for those who are looking to be aligned in grief recovery, take this seriously, especially our guy listeners. We want you to know that help is out there. Time will heal, but understand that the impact that grief has on one's life, physically and mentally, deteriorates you. It'll slow you down. It could take you out. So if there are listeners, especially those guys listeners, who feel that they need to talk to somebody, how do they get a hold of you?
So I am easily reachable at SharonBrubaker.com or at SharonBrubaker.com, or you can call me on my cell phone, 661-212-0720, or at any time you can call the station here and they can find me. And men are absolutely my favorite clients because I love it when they get it, when they see it, and I see the change start happening right on their face.
And
you can tell.
Yeah.
By the look on their face.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we need to also make the point that there are individuals out there that need help that are not listening to this show, but can be guided in your direction, Sharon.
Absolutely. Most times it is not the griever that calls me. It's the person next to the griever.
Yes.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
just so you know that you're aware, it's the person next to the griever. Hey, call Sharon Brubaker. She can help
Well,
you.
and as I mentioned earlier, because I think this is hugely important, is a lot of your work can be done with the person next to the griever.
Yes.
Because there's no way in the Blue Blazes yet they're going to get this person, but they're having a hard time being that right person and saying the right thing and being the right counselor, if you will. So I can see you being a huge benefit to someone who's dealing with someone who is in the grief recovery stage.
Absolutely, 100%. And helping them through the process. Because sometimes the griever's not ready, but the person next to the griever wants to know, what things do I say? What things do I not say?
Right.
How do I give the proper hug? All of that. Absolutely.
And that is something that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to say to someone. If I say this, what kind of reaction will I have? I don't want to hurt that person's feelings.
Right.
And it's very easy to do that.
Yes.
But don't be afraid
Don't be
to
afraid.
move forward with that individual, because you will give them the gift, maybe the gift of life, to allow them to keep going.
And if they show the emotion, be okay with it.
That's right.
Just be okay with it. It's
right.
absolutely normal and natural. just be there, be by their side, and hold their space.
That's exactly right.
Sharon Brubaker, thank you so much for being on the show. The information, our discussion that we had, once again, contact information is 661-212-0720. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's 661-212-0720. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Miles, happy birthday.
Well, thank you, sir.
Happy birthday. Yes.
Thank you.
Sweet 16, never been kissed enough.
That's right.
And we are sponsored by Comfort Keepers in Home Care, Miles McNamara, and Advanced Audiology. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.
You already know Salt Creek Grill has the best food in our valley. Well, now you can have Salt Creek's gourmet meals catered to your event.
I'm Greg Amsler, owner of Salt Creek Grill. I'd like to introduce you to a new level of catering, featuring our catering director, Tamara Levine.
Salt Creek Grill creates memorable experiences, which leaves our clients and guests with a sense of awe and excitement. From menu development to picturesque presentation, you'll enjoy culinary excellence and creative catering.
Salt Creek Grill, a new level of catering.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a variety of styles, including invisible. All feature-rich, providing unparalleled hearing quality, wearing comfort, and automation that simplifies your life. Don't be fooled by our imitators. There's only one Advanced Audiology with the purple sign next to AAA on Valencia Boulevard.
KHTS AM-1220 and 98.1 FM Santa Clarita. It's 12 o'clock. Time for national news on KHTS.
About face, flash flood warning. I'm Michael Toscano. President Trump is about to issue an executive order undoing the policy of taking kids away from parents who've entered the U.S. illegally.
After saying only Congress could fix his administration's policy, President Trump doing an about-face.
We have compassion. We want to keep families together. It's very important. I'll be signing something in a little while that's going to do that.
Mr. Trump admits the audio and video from the sites where children were held separated from parents moved him, but only to what he calls a temporary fix, absent any legislation from Congress.
At the same time, we have to be strong on the border. Otherwise, you'll have millions of people coming up, not thousands like we have now. You'll have millions of people flowing up and just overtaking the country.
Bob Costantini, Washington.
House Speaker Paul Ryan says there will be a vote on immigration legislation tomorrow, but the vote counters aren't sure anything will pass. Meanwhile, American Airlines is asking the Trump administration not to put migrant children without parents on its flights, as we hear from Clayton Neville.
The airline said in a statement that it doesn't know whether any migrant children have been on its flights and doesn't want to profit from the current immigration policy of separating families. Several flight attendants have posted on social media that they've seen groups of children they believe were separated from their families on recent flights.
Move to higher ground. That's the warning out to some residents of southeastern Texas. Forecaster Dave Hamrick of NOAA's Weather Prediction Center warns of a flash flood emergency because of all the heavy rain.
There were reports of isolated 12 to 15 inch amounts near the U.S.-Mexico border, so those were some of the highest reports we had. And it appears that had caused major flooding in those areas.
We're getting reports from Corpus Christi of first responders working to rescue motorists caught on flooded streets amid the heavy rain. Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, the current Archbishop Emeritus of Washington, D.C., was discovered to have abused a teenager decades ago. He's been removed from public ministry now. I'm Michael Toscano.
Does your dog itch, scratch, stink, or shed like crazy? Come to Dynovite for help.
Order a 90-day supply of Dynovite.
Everything we tried failed except the Dynovite.
Pick up 2 bottles of Super Mega Fish Oil.
Get the 3rd bottle free. Packed with omega-3, DHA, and EPA fatty acids.
Super Mega is great for your dog's immune system, healthy skin, and soft, shiny fur.
Dogs love it. Try Super Omega Fish Oil.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
At Dynovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
I make my Texas superfood from 55 raw, vine-ripened fruits and vegetables. You can see all 55 on TexasSuperfood.com.
All of the nutrients that we need on a daily basis, I lost 60 pounds. I mean, that's huge.
Since I've been on superfood, I haven't been sick.
I'm Dennis Black. Join us on TexasSuperfood.com.
TexasSuperfood.com.
Or call 877-55-TEXAS. That's 877-55-TEXAS. 877-55-TEXAS.
If you're tired of your nail polish chipping a day or two after an expensive manicure, then you'll love the gel nail polish manicure now offered by Ann. Ann is a licensed manicurist serving the Santa Clarita Valley in Canyon Country for over 15 years. And now she's offering the gel manicure that lasts without chipping for up to 2 weeks. Log on to HometownStation.com for details on how to get an amazing deal on gel nails by Ann on Restaurant Row. Or call Ann at 250-8340.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
Hey, Kyle, what are you doing Saturday, June 30th?
Not sure.
Nowhere bound, huh?
What?
Come on, Bubba Hyde. Get it together. You're a beautiful mess.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Diamond Rio songs. You're unbelievable.
Why, thank you, Kyle. I just want to let our listeners know that we'll be hosting the Big Diamond Rio show with special guest Savannah Burrows at the PAC at COC.
Imagine that.
Look at you getting it now.
One more day.
No, dude, it's June 30th.
Be my wingman.
Oh, now you're quoting Savannah Burrows songs.
Yep.
Sweet.
Join Tori and me when we host Diamond Rio with special guest SCV's own Savannah Burrows. Saturday, June 30th, 7 p.m. at COC's PAC.
Tickets are on sale now. Go to canyonspac.com.
Or hometownstation.com.
Step into a hot shower or slip on a warm t-shirt fresh from the dryer, and you can feel the comfort natural gas gives us every day. For over 100 years, Southern California provided safe, reliable natural gas service. It warms our homes, powers cleaner vehicles, and cooks our food at